Our favorite books of 2017 inches. Every product here is independently selected by Mashable journalists. If you buy something featured, we may earn an affiliate commission which helps support our work. 2017 is coming to a close, but if there is one thing that stands out from this year, it's all of the great books. From poignant, socially conscious novels like The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas to haunting short stories like Things We Lost in the Fire by Mariana Enriquez, 2017 was a year that shined bright with unforgettable literature. See also, Amazon's top books of 2017 reflect the crazy-ass year we just lived through. This week on the MASH Reads podcast, we look back and chat about what we read in 2017. You can check out the highlights from our conversation below. For books newly published in 2017. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Eliza says, "It's just this really beautiful book that combines a really relatable, very specific but universal teen story about figuring out your place in the world, with the struggles that Black teenagers face, police violence, and all the complicated aspects of that." It's just an amazing, well-written debut. Listen to the MASH Reads full podcast discussion here. The Idiot by Elif Batuman. Peter says, "It was beautifully written and had such a singular voice and personality that really just shook me." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Things We Lost in the Fire by Mariana Enriquez. Peter says, "It was just right up my alley in 1,000 ways." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Call Us Dead by Danez Smith. MJ says, "I still get chills when I think about it. When I think back on this year, that poem and the way it made me feel and the way it made me think and the discussion we had here will be a shining light." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Most unexpected book that you loved. For books outside our comfort zone that we found ourselves obsessing over. There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. Eliza says, "It's not totally outside my wheelhouse in that it's but it is a pretty gruesome slasher book, and I wasn't sure if I would enjoy it, and I ended up loving it. I thought it was so interesting and fit in so perfectly with my foray into horror." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Things We Lost in the Fire by Mariana Enriquez. MJ says, "I'm known to love short stories, but known to not be interested in occult and paranormal stuff. But I think this collection towed the line between those two genres and merged them with a type of literary fiction and short story structures that I really enjoyed." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Grief is the Thing with Feathers by Max Porter. Peter says, "I didn't think I would dislike it, but I did not expect to love it as much as I did. I wept constantly while reading it. But it was a good cry, a very cleansing lovely cry, all through reading that." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. The most challenging thing you read. For books that might not have been the best fit for us but we read anyway. South and West by Joan Didion. MJ says, I love Joan Didion. I was so inspired to pursue writing because of her. South and West is a collection of her notes. The reason why it's so challenging though is that it's just notes that were marketed as a book. So it's really interesting getting a peek into her thought process, and I would recommend people read it because it offers a glimpse into how she structures, and what she's looking for when she crafts those iconic essays. But it's just hard to read because you have such an expectation of what you're going to get from a Joan Didion story, and it's just not a story. Goodbye Days by Jeff Zentner. MJ says, Goodbye Days was a tough one because it was too in my wheelhouse. It was a lot of it was a lot of grief. But I think about it so fondly now because of that line, do you think he ever got to love anyone the way he wanted to? Which comes when a grandmother finds out her grandson is gay, and mourns the fact that he didn't get to live his full life. That line sits in my heart. So I think of that book fondly, though at the time while reading it, it was definitely a challenge for me. Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Talent. says, I didn't like the characters, didn't like Talent's writing style, didn't like the way he wrote about women and women's bodies. Just not for me at all. I love that people are getting something out of this book, especially if it can do anything to help victims of assault. I'm happy about it. Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. The Gunslinger by Stephen King. Eliza says, again. A man that doesn't know how to write about women. Those sex scenes will haunt me. Forever. That being said, I've read a couple Stephen King books. This was the first Stephen King book I didn't like. Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. History is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. Peter says, every page was a struggle, but not because it was boring. That book sapped me of energy. I couldn't deal with the preciousness. I had a lot of trouble with the characters, what they did, their motivations. I give that book a lot of credit for many things, and am not sad that I read it. It was just hard. Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. The unsung hero of 2017 literature. For outstanding books that we think deserve more praise and attention. The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. Eliza says, they were beautiful folk tales with beautiful illustrations. It was just amazing and beautiful and empowering and dark in a great way. Read MASH Reads interview with Leigh Bardugo here. Goodbye Days by Jeff Zentner. Eliza says, I like the fact that he was confronting these ideas of responsibility. I like the way that he writes teenagers. I like his turns of phrase. As emotional as that book was for me, I left it feeling good. Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Fever Dream by Samantha Sweblin. Peter says, I still think that book is incredible. It honestly turns my head around and around and around. It's a fever dream of a book, and I think it's magical in a way that no book has been for me in a very long time. Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Universal Harvester by John Darnell Peter says, "It's not a perfect book, and I do think it fails in some ways, but I found it to be gripping and affecting, and I've thought about that book a lot this year, because honestly I do think there are some haunting things in that book that I don't think will leave me anytime soon." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Released by Patrick Ness. MJ says, "I adored that book. I loved it so much and I didn't see it get a ton of pickup, which makes me so sad. It's a quiet, little book of the day in the life of a kid who is gay, and it's modeled after Mrs. Dalloway. It's just really charming and really affecting." Everyone knows Patrick Ness from the Chaos Walking series. "I think there were other YA books got more attention this year, and I feel like this one got lost, but it is so good. Favorite thing you read this year?" Our top favorite books, newly published or older, that we read in 2017. Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Eliza says, "It was just a really amazing book. I know it's a classic, but it's a classic that's often forgotten about. The book is so good. Hurston is such an amazing writer. Just a really beautiful book and her journey still feels very timely." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. Eliza says, "That is one of the many books I got to read this year that dealt with mental health, and I'm really happy that people are writing about, and that these authors feel comfortable and brave enough to expose their battles." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed. Eliza says, "I think 2017 has been a bit of a garbage fire. 2018 hopefully will be better, but who knows, and I think that Strayed's funny dark advice is what we need." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. MJ says, "It's so wildly inventive. It's a book that should not work. It's this weird-ass trip through purgatory, written as just lines of dialogue, and some of the historical documents are fake, but it does. It has so much heart. I love that book. I recommend it to everyone. Go read." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertley. Eliza says, "It's amazing, and one of the first times I saw myself in a book. Shout out to Becky Albertley for being my YA queen." The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Peter says, "It was awesome to read it with you all because I knew I loved it, but rereading it again, I realized my previous love was a pale thing in comparison to the bright shining star that burst forth from my head when I reread it." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here. Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. Peter says, "Even after our podcast discussion, I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of this book after an hour of talking about it. It's not maybe my favorite book of all time, but it's still the greatest book I've ever read. I really want to read it again. It was something that was incredibly and infinitely surprising." Listen to the full MASH Reads podcast discussion here.